Hi everybody, it's Fashion Month, and for those who aren't in the fashion industry, that means that it begins the Spring-Summer 20 women's wear collections, which start in New York, go to Milan, London and Paris, and it will be a month of running around the world for all the fashion editors, press and buyers. I'm currently not in New York, I'm in Frankfurt, but I thought we'd kick off with a little bit of fashion video today, and a few people have been asking me about what I like to watch when I'm looking at fashion films or documentary biopics on the fashion world. So I thought I'd talk about them today. The most recent one I've seen is actually a Netflix documentary production, which is called 7 Days Out, produced by Andrew Rossi. It's a really interesting take on events, global events all around the world. The one that's more prominent for this conversation is about the Chanel Haute Couture Spring-Summer 18 show that Karl Lagerfeld presented in Paris, as he normally does. It's a really fascinating documentary. It starts essentially 7 days before the show is due to happen, and it travels through the entire journey from how the collection's being finalized in the ateliers, in Chanel in Paris, interviews with Karl, the whole team, casting the models, trying all the clothes on, finishing all the collections with all the other ateliers who produce all the embroidery, etc. And then the production itself, how they build, design and create the set, and then the day of the show, and then essentially aftermath. It's a fascinating insight, and I think anybody who is interested in fashion should watch it, but even if you haven't got a leaning towards fashion, it would be really cool to watch. I think it's really interesting and gives a fantastic insight into how complicated and how dedicated people are within fashion. So that's one I would highly recommend. Another one of old is actually about Valentino, the Italian designer. It's called The Last Emperor, and it's a really interesting look on his life running Valentino right from early days and with his partner. And it also goes into a lot of the business side, how he decided to sell a percentage of his business to Apex and then ultimately sold the entire business, and how that emotionally affected him. And he stayed on as creative director and then ultimately retired and did a very large gala show. It's a really cool documentary. What's also fascinating, if you have the DVD, is that there's a second additional DVD, which is about an hour long, which looks at all his houses and his properties and his yacht and his major domo who runs his households around the world. And it's absolutely fascinating, the life of luxury of a very wealthy designer. But it's a fun and very interesting documentary about fashion. The other one that's now 10 years old, but still now a classic, is the September issue. It was created 10 years ago, and it was one of the first fly-on-the-wall documentaries. Vogue, American Vogue, agreed to take part in. It was all access granted by Anna Wintour and the entire editorial team in New York. And it follows the creation of the September issue of American Vogue, which is the largest and most successful issue and print magazine in the world. They reckon something like 13 million US women buy the September issue alone, which is phenomenal even today. So it's very interesting, and also catapulted to fame the wonderful Grace Coddington, who is the creative director and one of the best and most incredible stylists in the world. And it really did make a star of her, in spite of the fact that she's not really one of those people that likes the limelight, one suggests. But it's still an amazing insight into how magazine publishing, how the fashion industry works, the behind the scenes, the work, the effort, the energy, and the passion of people who produce fashion and fashion magazines. And it's still one I highly recommend. So that's kind of my tips for fashion films, fashion documentaries, and I hope you enjoy them, and let me know how you get on if you watch any of them. Bye now.